AITA for stopping letting my boyfriend eat our child's baby food. He won't eat anything else. I never thought I would be in this position. If you had told me a few years ago that my boyfriend, the father of my child, my partner in life, would refuse to eat anything but baby food, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am, trying to figure out how my 25-year-old boyfriend ended up with a diet that would make sense for a teething toddler and absolutely no one else. Jacob and I have been together for a while. We met in college, fell in love, moved in together, and eventually had our son. Our little boy is just over a year old now, and he is my whole world. I love being a mother, even though it is exhausting, and I try my best to make sure that our son is getting all the nutrients and care that he needs to grow into a happy, healthy little person. But that is where the problem starts, because somehow, I ended up in a situation where I have two people in my house who are eating baby food, and one of them is a grown adult who should absolutely know better. It started out as something I did not even really notice. At first, I thought Jacob was just messing around. He would grab one of the fruit puree pouches I had bought for our son and slurp it down in seconds. I laughed the first time it happened, assuming he was just being silly or nostalgic. Maybe he just wanted to try it. Maybe he was curious. I did not think much of it. But then it kept happening. More and more, I started noticing that whenever I went to the store and stocked up on baby food, the little jars and packets would disappear way faster than they should have. At first, I thought our son was just going through more food than usual, or maybe I had miscounted. But then I started seeing it with my own eyes. Jacob would sit down on the couch, turn on the TV, and just start eating one of our son's meals like it was completely normal. I remember the moment when it really clicked for me. I was in the kitchen, making dinner, actual, real dinner, for both of us. I had put a lot of effort into it, cooking something nice that I thought he would enjoy. But when I brought it to the table, he barely even looked at it. Instead, he walked to the pantry, pulled out a jar of mashed carrots meant for our son, twisted off the lid, and started eating it like it was nothing. I was stunned. I asked him why he was eating that when I had just made dinner, and he shrugged and said he liked it better. At first, I tried to reason with him. I told him it was weird, that it was not normal for a grown man to survive on the same food as a literal infant. He just brushed it off and told me it was no different than liking soft foods or having a preference for certain textures. But the thing is, it is different. Because it is not just soft foods. He is not eating mashed potatoes or soups or anything else that an adult might reasonably prefer. He is eating pureed peas and baby oatmeal and drinking formula like it is some kind of gourmet meal. And the worst part? He started eating our son's food. Not just the extra baby food I bought to stock up, but the meals I specifically prepared for our baby. If I made a fresh puree or mashed up fruit for our son, would turn around and find Jacob eating it instead. He did not even ask. He would just take it. I tried to explain to him that this was not okay, that our baby's food was meant for the baby, and that I worked hard to make sure our son was getting the right nutrients. But he did not listen. Every time I confronted him about it, he just acted like I was being dramatic. So, I tried another approach. I started buying extra, thinking that maybe if there was more, he would not feel the need to take from our son's stash. That was a mistake. Instead of solving the problem, it made things worse. Because now, Jacob saw that there was more food and decided that meant he could eat even more of it. I would go to the pantry and find half of the baby food gone in just a few days. I started feeling like I was grocery shopping for two babies instead of one. And that was when I realized that this was not some weird phase or a quirky little habit. This was an actual problem. So, I put my foot down. I told him that enough was enough. Baby food is for the baby. That is literally the entire point of it. It is not meant to sustain a grown man. If he wants to eat soft food, I am more than happy to make soups, stews, or anything else that might fit his preference. But I will not stand by while he eats food meant for a child who actually needs it. Jacob did not take it well. He got angry, really angry, and accused me of controlling what he eats. He said I was treating him like a child, which is hilarious considering the fact that he is the one who insists on eating toddler food. He told me that I was being unfair, that I was trying to force him to eat things he does not like, and that I was basically starving him. That is when I realized that this conversation had gone from ridiculous to downright insane. Starving him? Really? There is an entire fridge full of food. I cook for him regularly. There are snacks, there are groceries, there are plenty of things to eat in this house. The only thing that is not available to him anymore is the food that is literally made for infants. If he is choosing not to eat because he is throwing a tantrum over baby food, that is his problem. Not mine. Now, he is sulking. He barely speaks to me, and when he does, it is short and snippy. I can tell he is holding on to resentment, like I have done something unforgivable by telling him to eat like an adult. And honestly, I do not know what to do. Because this is not just about food anymore. This is about the fact that I am supposed to be raising one child, not two. And I do not know how much longer I can put up with a man who refuses to act his age. Update 1. I had reached my breaking point. After our argument about the baby food, Jacob continued to sulk. He barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was in short, clipped sentences, like I had personally offended him in some unforgivable way. He was acting like a child who had been told he could not have dessert before dinner. And honestly, I was exhausted. I was already dealing with an actual toddler, navigating sleepless nights, tantrums, and the never-ending chaos of motherhood. The last thing I needed was to feel like I had a second child in the form of my fully grown boyfriend. But the thing that kept bothering me, the thing I could not shake, was the sheer strangeness of it all. I had never met an adult who refused to eat real food. Picky eaters? Sure. People who preferred simple foods? Of course. But this was different. This was a grown man who exclusively ate food designed for infants. It was not just a preference, it was a lifestyle. And no matter how much I tried to make sense of it, I just couldn't. So I did something I never thought I would do. I called his mother. I was hesitant at first. I did not want to seem like I was tattling on him, like I was running to his mom because I couldn't handle a problem in my own relationship. But at the same time, I needed answers. I needed to know if this was something new or if there was some deeper reason behind it. Maybe he had a weird phase as a kid, maybe he had some kind of traumatic experience with food, there had to be something that explained why he was like this. When she picked up the phone, I tried to approach the subject gently. I explained that Jacob had been refusing to eat anything except baby food, that he was even taking the food meant for our son, and that when I tried to talk to him about it, he became defensive and angry. I told her that I did not know what to do anymore, that it was starting to affect our relationship, and that I was hoping she could shed some light on why he was like this. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Too long. It stretched out so much that for a moment, I thought the call had disconnected. But then, in a quiet, almost resigned voice, she finally spoke. "Oh, so he still does it?" I felt my stomach drop. Still. I asked her what she meant. She hesitated for a moment, then sighed and said that Jacob had always eaten baby food. Even when he was a teenager. Even when he was supposed to be old enough to eat literally anything else. She had tried to get him to eat regular food, had cooked meals for him, had encouraged him to try new things, but he had stubbornly refused. No matter what she did, no matter how much she pushed, he would always return to jars of pureed vegetables, fruit packets, and baby formula. She even took him to doctors when he was younger, hoping that there was some kind of medical explanation. But the tests all came back normal. He was healthy, at least physically. The doctors told her that from a nutritional standpoint, he was fine, maybe lacking in variety, but not malnourished. They hinted that it might be a psychological issue rather than a physical one, but since he was otherwise healthy, no one really pushed the matter further. At some point, she just gave up. She had tried. She had fought the battles. But every time she pushed him to eat real food, it ended in screaming matches, tantrums, and protests. He would refuse to eat altogether, he would sulk and starve himself, and in the end, it was just easier to let him have what he wanted. So she did. She stopped fighting him, stopped trying to make him change, and just accepted that this was the way he was. I sat there, stunned, listening to her calmly explain that this was not some new, bizarre phase he had fallen into. This was his entire life. This was just who he was. I didn't know what to say. A part of me had been holding on to the hope that there was some logical explanation, something I could work with, something I could fix. But now I was realizing that I wasn't dealing with a temporary issue. This was something deeply ingrained in him. Something that had never been addressed properly. Something that he had been carrying with him for years, completely unchecked. I asked her if she had ever tried again, later in his life, to change his eating habits. If she had ever encouraged him as an adult to at least try to move past it. She let out another tired sigh and admitted that no, she had not. She had already spent so many years trying, and after a while, it just became part of the background of their lives. She did not think about it anymore. She had resigned herself to the idea that this was just Jacob's reality, and that fighting it was useless. I hung up the phone feeling worse than before. Because now I knew the truth. This was not something he would grow out of. This was not a phase. This was who he had always been. And if his own mother could not get him to change, what chance did I have? I started looking at him differently after that. Every time I watched him crack open a jar of baby food or drink formula like it was a protein shake, I felt a deep, unsettling sense of frustration. Not just frustration, hopelessness. This was not a quirk. This was not just some odd habit. This was a full-fledged, lifelong dependency on food that was never meant to sustain an adult. And now I was left with the million-dollar question, what do I do? Do I just accept that this is the way he is? Do I let it go like his mother did, stop fighting it, and just pretend that it is not a problem? Or do I try to push him to change, knowing that it might lead to fights, tantrums, and an exhausting, uphill battle that I may never win? Because at the end of the day, this is not just about food. This is about the fact that I am supposed to be building a future with this man. I am supposed to be raising a child with him. And I am starting to realize that I am not just taking care of our son, I am taking care of Jacob too. And now I don't know what to do at all. Should I just accept this? Is there a way to make him change? Update 2. I had made my decision. I was not going to give up. I was not going to let this be the thing that defined our relationship, that defined my life. I refused to sit by and enable something that, no matter how many times he tried to justify it, was not normal. I had to draw a line somewhere, and this was it. I stopped buying baby food in bulk. I calculated exactly how much our son needed, factoring in every meal, every snack, every emergency extra portion. I bought only that amount and no more. If Jacob wanted to keep eating the way he did, he would have to figure out another way to get his supply, because I was done enabling it. When I told him, I expected resistance, but I did not expect the explosion that followed. He lost it. His face twisted with anger, and his voice rose in a way I had never heard before. He shouted at me that I was taking food away from him, that I had no right to control what he ate. I told him, as calmly as I could, that this was not food for him, that he was a grown man, and that he needed to eat like one. He would not hear it. He kept shouting, kept insisting that I was trying to force him into something he did not want. It did not matter that I had tried everything, that I had been patient, that I had offered alternatives. It did not matter that the food in question was specifically designed for infants, not for fully grown adults. None of it mattered. He saw only one thing: I was denying him what he wanted. And then, without another word, he stormed off and locked himself in the bedroom. I stood there, stunned. The house was silent except for the soft sounds of our son playing in the next room, completely unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm, but inside, I was shaken. This was not a rational response. This was not the reaction of an adult man being asked to make a small, reasonable change. This was a tantrum. A full-fledged, screaming, door-slamming tantrum. The kind that toddlers throw when they are told they cannot have another cookie before dinner. I waited, hoping that he would come out, that he would talk to me, that he would at least try to meet me halfway. But the door remained closed. He refused to come out, refused to speak to me. It was as if I had suddenly become the enemy, all because I had dared to suggest that he eat like a normal adult. For the next few days, he barely spoke to me. He sulked, passive-aggressive and distant, only acknowledging me when absolutely necessary. Mealtimes became a silent war zone. I cooked, hoping he would give in and eat, but he refused. He would sit at the table, staring at his plate like it was poison, then get up and leave without touching it. It was exhausting. But I refused to back down. I thought that if I held my ground, if I stayed firm, he would eventually come around. I was wrong. One evening, I came home from running errands and went to the pantry to grab something. And that was when I saw it. A box. A huge, heavy box sitting on the pantry shelf, taking up an obscene amount of space. Confused, I opened it, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Baby food. Not just a few jars. Not just a small supply. But an entire hoard. Dozens of jars, packets, formula containers, and toddler snacks, stacked neatly, like a grotesque shrine to his obsession. He had ordered it online. A massive supply, enough to last him weeks, maybe even months. I felt sick. This was not a man giving in to a harmless craving. This was not a person who simply preferred a certain kind of food. This was an obsession, an addiction, something far beyond a simple habit. I turned to him, disbelief and frustration boiling over. This was absurd, I told him. Completely ridiculous. This was not normal. This was not okay. This was not something a grown man should be doing. He did not even flinch. He crossed his arms, looked at me with defiance, and told me that I was trying to dictate how he lived. That I had no right to tell him what he could or could not eat. That I was controlling and unfair and had left him no choice but to take matters into his own hands. And in that moment, standing there in front of a pantry full of baby food, listening to a grown man argue as if he were an oppressed child being denied candy, I realized something that I had been trying to ignore. This was never going to change. I had convinced myself that this was something I could fix, that if I just handled it the right way, if I said the right things, if I pushed at just the right angle, he would snap out of it. That he would see reason. That he would grow up. But that was never going to happen. He did not see a problem. He did not want to change. He was willing to fight, to scream, to throw tantrums and lock himself away, all for the sake of holding on to this bizarre, deeply ingrained habit. And that was when it hit me. I was not talking to a man. I was talking to a child. It seemed to me that I was talking to a child, and not to the father of my child. Update 3. I did not know what to do next. I had tried everything. I had reasoned with him, argued with him, given him space, set boundaries, and even taken a firm stand by refusing to buy extra baby food. And yet, none of it seemed to matter. He had gone behind my back, ordered a massive supply online, and continued with his bizarre eating habits as if I had never said a word. For days, I walked around in a daze, trying to make sense of it all. I was exhausted from carrying the emotional weight of it, from trying to convince myself that this was something I could fix, something I could rationalize. But deep down, I knew the truth. This was not just about food. This was something else entirely. Something that went deeper than preference or habit. And then, one evening, I caught him. I had just put our son down for the night and went into the kitchen for a glass of water. The house was mostly dark, the only light coming from the open refrigerator. At first, I did not think anything of it. But then I saw him, standing in the corner, partially hidden by the pantry door. His back was turned, but I could see his shoulders hunched, his head lowered. I stepped closer, my stomach twisting with unease. And that was when I saw what he was doing. He was eating baby formula. Not in a bottle. Not mixed with water. Just dry formula, straight from the container, scooping it up with a spoon like it was some kind of dessert. He was hiding while he did it, sneaking it in the dim light of the kitchen, as if he knew how ridiculous it was. Something in me snapped. This was not just stubbornness. This was not just a refusal to eat regular food. This was something else. Something worse. This was an addiction. I could not do this anymore. I could not stand by and watch a grown man, my partner, the father of my child, sneak around like this, clinging to something that was so clearly unhealthy, so clearly not normal. I had tried to be patient, tried to be understanding, but this was the last straw. I gave him an ultimatum. Either he went to therapy and worked on this problem, or I could not do this anymore. I would not live in this absurd situation, would not raise our child in a home where one parent acted like a functional adult while the other hid in the kitchen eating baby formula like a child sneaking candy before dinner. He fought me on it. He argued, insisted that I was being dramatic, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. He told me that he was fine, that his diet was not hurting anyone, that I was the one with the problem for trying to force him to change. But I did not back down. I told him that this was not normal, that he needed help, and that if he refused to get it, I could not see a future where this continued. Eventually, he agreed. Begrudgingly, reluctantly, but he agreed. We found a specialist who worked with eating disorders. I had not even considered that this might be something diagnosable, something with a name, but as soon as I started researching, I realized that it made sense. After several sessions, after pushing past his initial resistance, he admitted that he had a real problem. It turned out that this was something called ARFID, Avoidance/Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. It was not just about being picky. It was not just about liking baby food. It was a real disorder, one where people avoid or fear certain types of food. In his case, he had simply never moved beyond the comfort zone of baby food. He had clung to it for so long, refusing to challenge himself, refusing to explore anything outside of what felt safe. And that was the thing, it was not about taste, not really. It was about safety. Baby food was predictable. It was smooth, without unexpected textures, without surprises. It was something he had always known, something that had never betrayed him. The idea of eating real food filled him with anxiety, something he had never even acknowledged until therapy forced him to confront it. For the first time, I saw it clearly. This was not just childish stubbornness. This was an ingrained fear, something that had been part of him for as long as he could remember. And because no one had ever truly forced him to address it, not his mother, not his doctors, not even himself, he had never learned to push past it. He is working on it now. Slowly. He is trying new foods, branching out little by little. It is not easy. Some days, he resists. Some days, he backslides. But I can see the changes, even if they are small. And that is what matters. Looking back, I am glad I did not give up. I am glad I pushed him to seek help, because if I had not, this would have continued indefinitely. So, AITA? I don't think so. I just wanted my child's father to act like an adult.